Okay, sorry about the pause there. Anyway, so yeah, youth here in this poem seems to equal a deathbed, um, as the deathbed where it must expire, right? So youth must expire. Again, this sort of, I think, is again pointing out that death is inevitable. Okay, consumed with that which it was nourished by. It's consumed by that which it was nourished by. That's an interesting concept. Uh, so, so this fire, um, this fire, which we have to say, I don't know, maybe is life, is consumed consumed by what? What is life or youth nourished by? Can I say time? It's consumed by time. When we're younger, time seems to be on our side. We grow, and that's a good thing. But just like a fire, as we get older, eventually the wood runs out, it turns to ashes, and we are consumed. I think that's a good comparison, so I'm going to stick with that. Life is consumed by time. Okay. Let's see this, and then we get back to this ending line here. I can hear my children screaming in the background. Okay. So I think for the last part of this video, I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of truncate this or organize it into sections. So over here I've got a little blank space on this side. I want to be able to still see this poem, but I'm going to organize my thoughts here. So I think sort of the main idea of this poem is that it's kind of the idea that death makes love stronger. Right? This ending line, we love something much stronger when we know we have to leave it. And a lot of this poem has to do with time being short, things die. And so I think that kind of culminates in this idea that death makes love stronger. So some subpoints here that I could really talk about looking at my notes over here. All things die. I think I could talk about that. All things die. I think that's a point I could make. And then I could give the example of the trees and the birds. I can also, so trees, right, the birds. And since I'm going to be responding to this poem, I can pull in some personal examples as well. Because I'm assuming that the prompt is going to be, do you agree with Shakespeare's statement that death makes love stronger? Do I agree with that? So I don't know what I'm going to say here yet. That's a tough question, right? It's really personal. But so I might add a spot though to add a personal comment. Maybe like a personal experience. Does death make love stronger? I can think of losing grandparents. Does losing them make me love them more? I need to draw. Okay, can you guys go out? Sorry, guys. Okay. Sorry, you're all going to call me a horrible father there for that moment. Let's see. All things die. Trees, birds, a personal experience. I wonder if I ought to edit this. The whole life is consumed by time. I wonder if I ought to change it to something like love. Love is consumed by time, right? In me thou seest the glowing of such fire that on the ashes of his youth doth lie. I don't think this poem is just about life. It's about love. I'm sorry. Owen? Owen, there you go. Okay. That was Owen, making a little grand appearance there. All right, so second point. All things die. Right, and then the author makes the personal connection. In me, you see. Let's see, I have a little typo here. In me, you see this fading. Maybe I could say love. Shakespeare really loved tragic love, right? It almost makes it more beautiful by being tragic. In fact, I'm thinking of a poem I could connect to this one. A couple poems. And so maybe I'll just jot these down on the side here real quick. There's a poem some of you who've ever read The Outsiders will be familiar with, called Nothing Gold Can Stay. And that's the idea that, nothing good lasts. Nature's first gold was green, and it talks, again, very similar concept, that in nature things bloom and then they die. And then there's another poem that I'm thinking of, and I just lost it, but it'll come back to me. So let's go back here. In me you see this love, this fading love. Okay, so I think the second point I want to make is that love is like nature, right? The first section, all things die, and then the second, and then he gives a lot of nature examples, and then the second section, love is like nature, which might be a better place for that personal experience, perhaps. We'll just have to see. Again, these outlines are very flexible. Love is like nature. So, so I'll make a point here that Shakespeare, he connects nature and people / love, and then he also uses fire as a metaphor for love, and these are some good spots to stop and to maybe agree or disagree, right? He connects nature to people, and he uses this metaphor of fire for love. But maybe one point that I want to make is maybe this is the wrong metaphor. Right? I mean, fire. Oh, that reminds me of the other poem that I wanted to connect in. there's a poem, I can't remember who wrote it, but it was one of Roald Dahl's favorite poems. It goes like this. It's my candle burns at both ends. It will not last the night, but ah, my foes and oh, my friends, it makes a lovely light. The idea that if you're burning your candle at both ends, it's not going to last, but it's pretty. So I think Shakespeare loves that kind of love. The idea that love is like a fire that has to burn out. But I think maybe that's the wrong metaphor. Maybe real love is something more substantial, and I want to think of a better metaphor for that, and I could come up with that. And maybe the final bullet in my little outline here is going to be his final point, that to love that well. I'm going to shorten this a little bit. To love well, which thou must leave. And so, examples of this. I mean, do we? I think I'm thinking of some examples that don't work, right? Long distance relationships, right? Military, and I'm not trying to pick on the military, but I'm just thinking of them as an example. Military relationships are notorious for being for their divorce rates, right? Now maybe love, maybe that's not what Shakespeare's talking about over here. He's talking about, I think, more death and time. But if you know that you're going to lose somebody, does that make you love them more? If you know that someone's going off to war, maybe for a little while. But what about what about after they've been gone a year or 2 years or 3 years? Is it still love? So maybe that's a point I could talk about. Is it still love after the death or departure? Right? I think that's where the fire metaphor kind of fails, is the fire's gone out. But if it was real love, I don't think it should. Okay, so I think that's a good outline. I think that'll get me going. I've got some notes over here. I've got some quotes I can use. I think that is a pretty good start. And that took me about 24 minutes talking through this, gathering my thoughts. I had to read through it twice. And so now I think I'm ready to sit down and respond to this in a piece of writing.